She warned me about women like her. That's what Paul Burrell, Princess Diana's most trusted confidant, said live on air, with a voice shaking not from nerves, but from the weight of a memory that refused to stay buried. And who was her? Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Meghan Markle. Now pause. Imagine someone standing in front of a fire that's been smoldering for years, and then lighting the match that finally blows the whole thing wide open. That's exactly what Burrell did. He didn't stutter. He didn't dodge. He called Meghan out, directly, and revealed that Princess Diana herself may have seen her coming long before the world even knew her name. How? Why? And what exactly did Diana say? Hold on, because this isn't just another gossip piece. This is a deeply disturbing, emotional unraveling of secrets once thought lost with the late Princess of Wales. In a stunning interview, Burrell claims that Diana warned him to watch out for women who would use charm and pain as weapons. Women who could twist vulnerability into power. Women who could see Harry's soft heart and turn it into a leash. Women who could use one brother's love to destroy another's trust. He says Meghan Markle matches Diana's warning word for word. Burrell doesn't say this lightly. He was there, through Diana's breakdowns, her tears, her paranoia, her fears. He knew the unfiltered version of her. He says Diana had one haunting concern after her divorce. What if I'm not here to protect them? What if someone got to her sons? And now, 2 decades later, the unthinkable might have happened. Burrell recounts how Harry slowly began to pull away from everyone who knew and loved him, his friends, his staff, even his brother William. The change wasn't overnight. It was slow, almost surgical, until Harry was isolated, reprogrammed, rewritten. And Meghan? According to Burrell, she orchestrated every step. The public saw a fairy tale, but behind the scenes, Burrell paints the picture of a calculated divide, a strategy, not a love story. He goes further. He claims Meghan exploited not only Harry's grief, but his loyalty, his guilt, his longing for something Diana never got, a happily ever after. She knew which buttons to press, he says, and she pressed them all. But this isn't just a one-man opinion. What makes this explosive is how eerily accurate Diana's warning now appears, and how that warning, once brushed off as a mother's anxiety, may now be the key to understanding why Harry and William are more estranged than ever. Because if Paul Burrell is telling the truth, then Meghan Markle didn't just marry into the royal family. She detonated it from the inside. And what Diana whispered in confidence, it might have been the last line of defense against the very thing tearing her family apart today. But what Paul Burrell reveals next will leave Harry and William facing a truth they may never recover from. What if the most important prophecy of the modern royal family didn't come from a palace aide, or a politician, or even a psychic? What if it came from Diana herself? Years before Meghan Markle ever met Prince Harry, Princess Diana sat in a quiet room with her closest confidant, Paul Burrell. No cameras, no press, no guards, just 2 people bound by secrets and survival. And in that room, Diana said something that haunts Burrell to this day. She told me, Paul recounted, there will come a woman who knows how to play the game. She'll come cloaked in sympathy, in style. She'll smile like an angel, but she'll isolate my boys if I'm not here to protect them. Let that sink in. Princess Diana wasn't talking about tabloid headlines or royal protocol. She was talking about a threat to the souls of her sons. A woman who would use their grief, the grief over their mother, as a weapon. And Burrell? He says that woman is Meghan. He didn't always think that. At first, like many, he was hopeful. Harry had found love. He was smiling again, standing tall. It felt like a new chapter. But then Burrell started seeing the signs. Familiar ones. She mirrored the behavior of someone in pain, he said, just like Diana used to. But with one critical difference. Meghan used it to control, not to connect. It wasn't grief, it was leverage. Do you remember how quickly things changed once Meghan entered the royal frame? Staff turnover, security shifts, last-minute royal obligations canceled, leaks, statements, bombshell interviews. But to Paul Burrell, it wasn't random chaos. It was choreography. He said Diana feared that the deep need for love, especially in Harry, could be exploited by the wrong person. She told me Harry would search for her in every woman he meets, Burrell whispered. And that scared her. Because what happens when a man looks for his mother and finds someone playing the part? Diana feared that someone would manipulate Harry's rawest wound. The ache for maternal love, the need for emotional safety, the fear of being left behind again. And Meghan? According to Burrell, she knew exactly how to wrap herself in that ache. You have to understand, he said. Diana wanted Harry protected, not smothered. Meghan offered the illusion of protection, but it came with walls, and rules, and isolation. Was Meghan the fulfillment of Diana's darkest fears? Or is Paul Burrell reading into things that aren't there? But here's the twist no one saw coming. There's more to Diana's warning. Something Paul never shared publicly, until now. And once you hear what Diana confided in him about the brothers, you'll realize this story was never just about Meghan. What if love doesn't just blind, but rewires? That's what Paul Burrell wants the world to consider. That Prince Harry, once known for his cheeky grin, military honor, and loyalty to his brother, was slowly and deliberately changed. Not overnight, not with a grand announcement, but through something much more dangerous, subtle, emotional manipulation. Burrell calls it the isolation playbook. He says he's seen it before. In families where one person controls by pretending to protect. First, Burrell explained, you make the person believe that no one understands them but you. Then, you create tension between them and everyone else who once did. And that, according to Burrell, is exactly what happened to Harry. He began pulling back from his royal duties. His trusted aides began quitting. His longtime military mates, the same ones who stood by him through war zones and wild nights, were suddenly toxic. His brother William? Brushed off as jealous, controlling, unsupportive. And Meghan? She was always positioned as the innocent victim, the misunderstood outsider, the one under attack. Think about it. Every scandal, every headline, seemed to center around how the palace failed Meghan, how no one had her back, how the only person she could count on was Harry. Suddenly, Burrell said, he was standing alone, not because he had to, but because someone made him believe it was noble to. Ask yourself, how does a man raised in the strongest institution on earth, the monarchy, walk away from everything overnight? He doesn't, unless he's been convinced that it's the only way to prove his love. Burrell claims Meghan created a reality where Harry's pain was constantly reopened, not healed, where every criticism of her became an attack on his judgment. Every warning from his brother became betrayal. Every doubt became a test of loyalty. She used his trauma like currency, Burrell said. One emotional story at a time. One memory of Diana twisted. One private fear held up like a mirror, until Harry didn't know where he ended and Meghan began. The kicker? There were moments, tiny ones, where the illusion cracked. Burrell revealed that during one private family event, Harry quietly told a friend, "Sometimes I don't know who I am when I'm not defending her." Let that line hit. Because isn't that the point of emotional isolation? Not just to separate someone from others, but to separate them from themselves? And once you've done that, they'll follow you anywhere. Even out of the only world they've ever known. Even into exile. Even into battle with their own brother. Burrell says this wasn't love. This was strategy. And by the time William tried to intervene, it was too late. Because the moment Harry saw his brother as the enemy was the moment Meghan knew she had him. But what William did next, no one expected. And it would ignite the most bitter royal confrontation in decades. How do two brothers, bonded by unimaginable loss, become strangers? The answer, according to Paul Burrell, is one confrontation, one explosive, heartbreaking moment that changed everything. It started with whispers. Concerned palace staff murmuring that Harry wasn't himself. Friends voicing fears that Meghan's influence was cutting deep. William heard it all. At first, he brushed it off. Harry was in love. Intense, sure, but love can do that. But then things turned darker. Harry was missing meetings, snapping at aides, refusing calls from longtime friends. When William tried to talk, he was shut down, over and over again, until one day, he couldn't stay silent. In a private room at Kensington Palace, behind closed doors and far from cameras, William finally confronted his brother. And it was anything but royal. Paul Burrell says he heard the details from someone present that day. William, pacing, hands clenched, voice trembling, not angry, desperate. "I don't recognize you anymore," he allegedly said. "This isn't you, Harry. She's changing you. And I don't think it's for the better." That line, it lit the match. Harry exploded. Not with sadness, with fury. "You're just jealous. She loves me. You never supported her. You never supported me." In that moment, it wasn't two future kings debating family duty. It was two broken boys, still bleeding from the same old wound, their mother's death, now being ripped further apart by a woman Diana never met, but may have warned about. And Meghan? According to Burrell, she wasn't surprised. He claimed she had already planted the seeds, reinforcing a narrative that William was the golden child, the chosen heir, the cold older brother who would always view Harry as less than. Paul says Meghan used that narrative skillfully, painting herself and Harry as the victims of a royal system that was rigged from the start. And it worked, because after that fight, things were never the same. Publicly, the family smiled. But behind the scenes, radio silence. Invitations declined. Texts unanswered. And Meghan? She played the part well. Concerned. Hurt. Confused. But Paul Burrell says he saw through it all. She knew exactly what she was doing, he said. She didn't just come between the brothers. She turned their love into a weapon. And once that bond broke, the monarchy itself began to shake. Think about that. The very foundation of the royal family has always been unity, duty, image. But when the world saw William and Harry standing at Diana's statue, eyes cold, bodies stiff, the illusion shattered. They weren't brothers anymore. They were opponents. And in Burrell's eyes, that's exactly what Diana feared most. Not the cameras, not the tabloids, but that her boys, left alone, would be torn apart, not by war or power, but by love twisted into control. And the final blow? A private moment, a single sentence whispered by Meghan behind palace doors, a sentence overheard and later shared with Burrell that would confirm everything. But that's what we'll reveal in the conclusion. And it changes everything. There's a moment, just before something breaks, when you still think it can be saved. William believed that. For years, he held out hope that the damage could be undone, that his brother would come back, that the memories of childhood, of laughter, of loss, of walking behind their mother's coffin in silence, still meant something strong enough to fight for. But then came the sentence. A whisper, a private comment, overheard by a senior royal aide during a heated moment behind closed doors, one Meghan thought no one else could hear. According to Paul Burrell, this is what she said. "He'll never be king. Why should he bow to his brother?" 8 words. But in the monarchy, those 8 words are nuclear. Because they weren't just about titles. They weren't about protocol. They were about power. And more than that, about division. Paul Burrell said when he heard those words secondhand, everything clicked. It wasn't just a love story. It wasn't even a rebellion. It was strategy. That comment, simple as it was, revealed the truth behind years of tension, fallout, and public spectacle. It confirmed Diana's fear. It validated William's warning. And it destroyed the last piece of the illusion Harry had clung to. Burrell believes Diana didn't just sense this possibility. She knew it was coming. She didn't leave behind a letter or a will predicting Meghan. But in her late-night conversations with Paul, in the way she spoke about the boys. How vulnerable Harry was, how stubbornly loyal, how desperate for love. She described a scenario that now reads like prophecy. Diana said, "One will carry the crown. The other will carry the weight. If someone twists that, they'll never forgive each other." And now, they haven't. Not after Oprah. Not after Spare. Not after Netflix. Not after that private sentence. The divide is no longer just emotional. It's structural, institutional. And Burrell? He says there's no going back. Because you can fix a broken rule. You can survive a scandal. But once trust between brothers is gone, no crown can fix that. So where does that leave us? With a monarchy teetering. With a family shattered. With a ghost, Diana, who saw it coming. And with a man, Paul Burrell, who was once dismissed as a footnote, now holding the final thread in a royal unraveling. He says he didn't want to speak.